Hi there, I'm Eric Wordweaver Sjerven, Goathie of the Ridgar folk here in East Texas, and I would like to welcome you to another Raving review. This is a show where I just go on and ramble about different movies, video games, books, comics, whatever it is that catches my eye at the time that I feel like talking about. And this is just kind of media today through a this particular heathen's point of view. Now, keep in mind, I am my own person. I have my own views on things. So I like to look at movies and different media, all kinds of different media, and explore them for heathen values, virtues, or just little bits that correlate to heathenry that are just really cool. And I love to kind of get on and talk to you guys about it a little bit so that when you go out and look, you can see these movies and look at them through a heathen kind of veneer. You can see them through heathen glasses, and there's just some really cool things out there, and I love to sit and talk about these things. So today we're going to be talking about the movie Coco. Now, this is a Disney Pixar production, and for those of you that are listening at home, you don't see me looking over here all the time, but I'm looking at my computer because I've got the wiki and stuff pulled up, and I like to have good information when I go on and do these things. So this is a great movie. I love this movie. It came out in 2017. It's a Disney Pixar movie, so it got a budget of $175 million, made 807 at the box office, 807 million. So it was successful. It runs for about an hour and 105 minutes. So it's just under 2 hours. And typical for an animated film, especially Disney Pixar. And it is fantastic. Basic gist of this movie is this young man named Miguel dreams of becoming a musician. And the problem with all of that is that his family has banned music. And the reason for it, of course, is that he has an ancestor who was a musician, great-great-grandfather, I believe, and his great-great-grandmother, the musician, this mariachi player, disappears into the chases dreams, all that stuff, leaves the family behind. So there's sour grapes, bad apples. And so the family bans music. It's no go, no good. And so there's no music allowed in the family. They don't sing, they don't dance, they don't play. And this is horrible for Miguel because he dreams of becoming a musician. He's actually good at it. And so he goes out and tries to pursue his dream after a fashion, and that leads to problems for the family. Now, the entirety of this movie takes place around Dia de los Muertos. Easy for me to say, right? Dia de los Muertos, again, is a Hispanic holiday, especially in Mexico, that centers around the family coming back, the ancestors coming back and being able to interact with the living. It is a day when the veil thins and the ancestors can rejoin us in celebration. And so they embrace all of this imagery of like the skeletons, the skulls, the imagery of the dead. And they have these little altars set up with family photos and things like that serves as an anchor for the ancestors to be able to come back over. Kind of come back to some of that here in a bit. And he goes on this grand adventure as a result of his pursuing his dream and trying to right some of the familial angst that goes along with it. So he tries to mend a few things, and it is beautiful. Just as a straight up movie, it is beautiful. It's a wonderfully heartfelt film. It's appropriate for all ages. Of course, the Disney Pixar, you would expect that. And the culture that they embrace with it, they really did their homework on it in a lot of ways, and you can see it just kind of ooze out of every pore. It is gorgeous. They nail a lot of this. It's very, very well done. Just from a cinephile kind of point of view, it's a great movie. It's very, very well done, and I highly recommend it to anybody that just enjoys movies. The animation style, which I'll try to include some graphics and stuff in here, obviously. The animation style is great. Typical Disney Pixar of the whole, kind of 3D CGI elements. It's all animated. And the voice cast on it is really good. They do a fantastic job on it. And it's incredibly moving. The artwork, the style, the aesthetic, everything flows well. And so the movie is very engaging. You get enthralled with this story that they're telling. And they tell it very, very well. You find yourself attached to the characters. There's a great deal of humor in it. But all while still focusing around this very family-centric story and values. And so this is by far not a heathen movie, because this is centered around a very specific culture. But there are a lot of things in here, a lot of things that resonate very, very strongly with heathenry. And so I wanted to explore a couple of those real quick. Okay. Now, one of the things that just is so in your face right off the bat is the focus on hearth cult and the ancestor veneration, like we do within heathenry. This is a wonderful representation of it through another culture that has similar views to us as far as ancestral involvement. It centers around the Dia de los Muertos element of the veil thinning, so the ancestors can come back. The altars that they set up with images of their families, with these individuals that have passed and gone on before, one of the kind of rules for it is that in order for that ancestor to come back, they need an anchor on this side, which is the picture on the altar. That picture serves as kind of their ticket to get back across, and if it's not there, then they can't come. If they're not remembered by the family, they can't come back. And their legacy lives on through the family telling the stories, remembering them, putting out offerings for them on the altar and inviting them back. It rejuvenates that spirit and keeps them alive. It keeps them going. And if they don't get these things, then those spirits begin to break down and dissipate over time. So it's a duty, an obligation, a frith obligation of the family to keep these altars up, to keep these traditions alive in order to keep the memory of these ancestors alive and going, and to keep their spirits charged. Now, the whole aspect of the spirits dissipating if they're not, fed with offerings and things like that, not necessarily the way that we see things in heathenry as far as that goes, but the element of giving back to the ancestors, feeding them power, feeding them luck, and then them blessing us is very much a heathen thing, very, very much. So this is a great representation of these elements in movie format. It's beautiful to see the altars that they set up, to see this wonderful focus on family, and this includes the good and the bad when it comes to family. They embrace those that have gone before, and the message of love, the message of involvement, of engagement with the ancestors, reverence for the ancestors is just spot on. Love it. And you get to see some different elements of the underworld because his adventure does take him across the veil, which is really cool, really beautifully done. And it's very moving to see all of this. And of course, the comedic elements go along with it and make it an enjoyable watch nonetheless. But still, these heathen elements are so strong and so prevalent throughout that it without being a heathen movie, it is a strongly heathen valued type movie. And so you get all of these images of the offerings, of the altars, the interaction between the ancestors and the living. And it's just incredible to see another culture embrace that in the way that we do. Because I don't know about you guys, but my ancestor altar at my house is one of the main focuses as far as my home altar work goes. I'm very strong on hearth cult. I'm very strong on grassroots heathenry. Very strong on the two main things as far as ritual in my home goes are those offerings that I make to my hearth god or my husvetir. Anglo-Saxon, from the Old English, more Anglo-Saxon side of things, they would call it the Kolf god. If you've watched one of my more recent videos on husvetir versus landvetir, I go into that a bit and kind of explain the difference between a typical landvetir and the hearth god or the husvetir or Kolf god, depending on how you what terminology you choose to use. And so the other main focus of my hearth cult is, of course, ancestral worship or reverence. We give offering to the ancestors because we owe everything to the ancestors. Without them, we couldn't be. We inherit our orlog. We inherit this is all encompassed in the orlog, the social standing that we have, how well off we are, the luck that we get from them, how well we're set up to succeed in the future. Plus, they continue to feed us luck and to feed us guidance and influence through their connection to us in the now, because our ancestors have a vested interest in us succeeding. We keep their legacy alive. We keep building on the familial name. We do these beautiful things for them, and we make sure that the world knows that our ancestral line is a strong one, and we take pride in who we come from. Now, of course, there are elements in there where people have ancestors they're not particularly proud of. I know I have a few in my family tree that did some things that are thought well of by those post-conversion, but not so much pre-conversion for many reasons. And but that doesn't change the fact that in order for me to be here, in order for me to exist, every decision had to be made as it was made at the time that it was made. If any of those decisions had been different, changed, altered in any kind of way, shape, form, or fashion, I might not even have come to exist. It's very, very unlikely that if my ancestors had not connected with whom they connected at the times they connected, this far down the line, with this many variables thereafter, that I would even be here. So it's a beautiful thing to recognize that even if we don't necessarily agree with everything our ancestors did, the very fact that they perpetuated the familial line leads to us being here. So I love to see that element brought forth in a movie, to be so exquisitely done and so masterfully crafted through storytelling. Beautiful. Now, there are frith obligations that occur, and I love to look at elements where that plays in as well. You look at the element of frith, the obligation that goes along that with family, and one of the main frith obligations here is, of course, upkeeping the altar so that the familial spirits continue to be with the family and charging the family, bringing the luck, keeping the luck alive. These are elements that are very, very heathen. So it's very neat to see that kind of cross-cultural similarity. The frith element of the obligation goes deeper still, because in this particular movie, you have an ancestor that is not revered like the rest of the ancestors. He is cast aside because this is that mariachi player that was not, he was absentee, and he was cast out because he did not uphold his frith obligations. And yet, there is still an obligation to him, even though he was cast out of the frith web by the rest of the family. This great-great-grandson, who still feels ties to him, feels the pressure due to this familial obligation and his own dreams, the similarities, it's family. And he needs this element there for him to be able to do what he does and to mend his family. He feels this frith obligation to save this spirit in the eyes of the family, rejuvenate the spirit, reincorporate this spirit within the familial line, etc., etc., etc. If I go too much deeper, I'll end up spoiling things on the movie, so I don't want to do that. But you need to understand his motivations in this in order to understand that there are what moves him and motivates him is an obligation based on frith, which is still a heartfelt obligation. A lot of people have a problem with the term obligation, but it's very real. It's very there. You are obliged to family because they are your family, and it's a complex thing. I know I've done some frith obligation videos over on the Ravens Call. You can kind of look at that for some more in-depth explanation on all of that. But in addition to the pressure he has from a frith obligation side of things to mend this with his great-great-grandfather and to reincorporate him into kind of the familial spirit, there is an element of healing the Orlog as well. And so Orlog is everything in the pattern that comes before us, everything that leads to us being where we are, the choices that our ancestors made, the effect of the world around us on our familial line, the zeitgeist of the times and how that impresses upon and guides our familial developments. All of these things play into who we are. They're all part of our inheritance. And this movie really delves into that without saying it, because they don't necessarily have the same terminology that we do for it, but in essence it's the same thing. This familial spirit and this damaging incident within the movie, wherein he is kind of thrust out of the Frith web. This is a wound for the family, and it continues to manifest generation upon generation, as we can see that we are at, great-great-grandchildren here who are trying to help take care of this, because it is a wound. It bleeds. The grandparents, the parents, everybody feels the weight of this wound and the impact of the family casting out music in favor of their shoemaking business and maintaining that kind of obligation to the shoemaking business, but still casting out this particular part of their orlog and not fully enveloping it. And because they do not fully envelop this element of their orlog, it damages their luck in the here and now. It damages the family, and you get to see that in action because there is just a piece of them missing, because they have not embraced and understood that particular element of orlog and how that plays into who and what they are now. So the plot of the movie is all about Frith obligations, ancestral veneration, and healing orlog. And it's all done up in this beautiful aesthetic, this focus on Dia de los Muertos, and this cultural tradition that goes along. I love to see these things. I would love to see a movie done with these thematic elements from a heathen standpoint. I would love to see kind of a heathen version of this, of course, obviously centering around more Yule winter nights kind of thing. I have utilized a little bit of this in my storytelling with my book, Saga of Bjorn Thorolfson, as far as the familial elements, especially the veil thinning around Yuletide. And so I would love to see this kind of thing transition and to see a more heathen-focused, heathen cultural aesthetic applied to these kind of themes in a movie format. I think it would be great. I think it would be fantastic. In the meantime, watch this movie. I give it 5 out of 5. Love it. Love it, love it, love it, love it, love it. I watched this movie sitting down thinking, all right, well, it's going to be a fun romp. Part of what drew me to it is my lady she loves the Dia de los Muertos aesthetic, the art styles, the skulls, the everything. So it was a no-brainer. Of course we're going to watch this movie. It's right in her wheelhouse. I love it. And then as we got just a few minutes into the movie, I was slack-jawed with all of the heathen elements that I see brought forth. I was so deeply moved that I was enthralled for the remainder of the movie. Sucked me in, told me a fantastic story. It's very heartfelt, very wholesome, very, very powerful. So it's good storytelling, which is difficult to find these days anyway. Beautiful artwork and aesthetic, and then deeply meaningful and wholesome thematic elements. So it's a fantastic movie. Absolutely wonderful. There's more elements in there as far as gift exchange, gift debt kind of things go. Not as prevalent, but still there kind of as an undercurrent. But the main focus being on that ancestral veneration, crossing of the veil during a specific time of the year, which is very much in keeping with kind of heathenry. And in general, a lot of cultures have this kind of thing, where they recognize a thinning of the veil around more wintry times, fall times into winter, and the communion with the ancestral spirits, the need for that, the importance for that. And this nails it. It's fantastic. It's wonderful. I dig it. I love it. And I cannot recommend it enough. So I'm not going to ramble on too terribly long about this one. I want to keep these review videos a little bit shorter, just so they're more easily digestible. And the basic gist is there's some strong heathen elements in this movie. It is a fun movie. I loved it. I embraced it, and I highly, highly, highly recommend that you guys do too. So give it a look-see, check it out. I think we caught it streaming on Netflix. I don't know if it still is or not. I know it was. So you want to check around. If it's even like Redbox the disc or whatnot, watch this movie. Like I said, it came out in 2017, so it's a more recent film. And I love the embracing of culture that takes place in films like this. I would love to see more movies going forward continue to embrace cultural elements that are very, very, like almost out of the norm for a lot of people that don't really get that culture. So I would love to see more movies done like this. that deeply understand the culture, that bring forth these wonderful elements and a wholesome telling, and help to keep these things alive. Storytelling is so important in general, specifically for these purposes, because this is how we keep tradition alive. This is how we teach Thu. This is how we teach values. This is how we keep our ancestral stories alive. And this is just another format, another medium for storytelling. And it's just exquisitely done. Loved it. Wonderful film. So check it out. It's called Coco. It's by Disney Pixar. You can find it all over the place. It should not be difficult. I'm sure a number of you have already seen a trailer for it. And yeah, check it out. It's worth it. Absolutely. So without any further ado, I'm going to let this one wrap up for today. But let me know what you guys see down in the bottom. I know every heathen that I've talked to that has watched this particular movie has just been awe-inspired by these elements and had deeply moved by the way the storytelling handles these particular elements. So give it a look-see. Let me know in the comments down below or on the Facebook group, Word Weaver Productions. That's Word-Weaver Productions. There's a link for it down in the description. If you're listening to the podcast version of this, I should still have those links in the description, so check those out. Give it a look-see. Let me know what kind of insights you take from it, because this is so rife with heathen traditions, yet not being heathen, that it's incredible. Because we have a lot in common between heathenry and the more Hispanic cultures as far as these kind of elements go. There's a lot of commonality, a lot of strong correlation between the two, and I love to see that. Just as with these particular elements, there's a lot of thematic congruency across a number of cultures, and this is just simply one example. So give it a look-see. Let me know what you guys think, and I look forward to hearing from you. So in the meantime, hail, thank you, and may your hearth fires burn bright. Crap. All right. Nope. We're going to scrap all that. We're going to start over. And we'll go back to, this is a great little movie. In 3, 2, 1, let's jam. I guess I need the shades for this bit. Raving review. Microphone on. Alright, we're going to talk about Coco first, I think. Let's get it pulled up here. This is the fun bit where I go on and pull up the wiki. The wiki. Wiki. Serves a purpose. Do not disturb. Keeps my phone from going off. It's a great thing. Come on, internet, be fast. Don't be slow. We're gonna go to the wiki. All right, so we're gonna talk about Coco now. Hopefully, I will be able to get decent pictures to include on the video for this one. That would be cool. It's a cool video, cool movie. Alright, so quick. Alright, so we're gonna go in 3, 2, 1, let's jam. Hi there, folks. I'm Eric Word Weaver Sjerven. Hang on. Alright, we're live in 3, 2, 1, let's jam. Hi there, folks. I'm Eric Word Weaver Sjerven, and I'd like to welcome you back to another Raving review. This is a show where I don't particularly care for that being set so freaking high. Hang on a second. Let's go here. Hopefully the phone won't fall. All right. So scrap all that. Go back to the start, and we're live in 3, 2, 1. Let's jam. All right, guys. Welcome to... No! That's about par for the course. Oh, I have to leave that in for the bloopers. Monkeys. That's ridiculous. Alright, maybe we set the tripod up differently with more frontal support. Okay, let's try this again. the crazy things that happen when you film for YouTube. And we're live in 3, 2, 1, let's jam.